My family got to meet together. We were coming from different directions, but we got to meet together in New York City where we were able to spend about 48 hours or so, maybe a little more, with one of our daughters who's actually in school there. And while we were there, we looked around and kind of saw things, and we went on, I think it was Friday night, we went to a Broadway show. And that Broadway show was the musical of Back to the Future. And now some of you, Back to the Future is like classic movie. Yeah, it's like, man, that was the thing, right? It's great. And so we went to Back to the Future. And so it's Broadway, it's New York City, it's crowded and everything else. But there's this thing right from the very beginning, before you even get in, one thing that's true about these types of deals is they are like welcoming you in. They want you there, right? And in Times Square, everybody's competing for your attention, right? And so you can see, even outside, the lights are really bright and it's big and everything else. And this is before the show, but after the show, they would even put the DeLorean out there. They have a DeLorean in the musical, and so they put it out on the street. It's a really cool experience. But it's like, hey, come here, like do this thing, right? Which is wonderful. And then when you go inside, even really before you decide, you like the security on the outside. They're doing their job, but they're smiling. Like they're kind of they're excited you're there. You get inside, and there's ushers everywhere, and they've got little flashlights because the place is dim and the stage is lit up already. But they're ready for you. They want you to have this great experience. And when you walk in, you can almost feel the energy's palpable. I mean, people are there because they, for the most part, want to be there, right? It's like, this is the thing, and we bought tickets, and we made these plans and whatever, right? And so you just feel this energy, and they're playing this, like, old school music that was from part of Back to the Future, and so you're already being transported back in time just a little bit, and again, somebody's helping you find your seat, and it's this amazing thing. And you watch the whole production. And then afterwards, because this is what our girls would want to do, like you go to what's called the stage door. And you line up outside the stage door. And it's kind of cold at night and everything, but you line up outside the stage door and you're waiting. Some of the actors and actresses will come out the stage door. And that's where you can meet them and where you can get your playbill signed, like that also this thing. So we wait in this line, and our girls, they get lots of different autographs from all of these people. And what was fascinating to me is we've already had this great experience, but what was fascinating to me is that every one of these actors and actresses that stopped by and were doing the line to sign a playbill, every one of them, I was literally blown away by this. Every one of them had no hurry, had no rush. While we were standing there, I leaned over and I said to Eric, I said, I'm amazed at the eye contact from this group. It was almost so good you felt uncomfortable. It's like, what do you know about me? Right? I mean, they're just locked in. Like, they're asking questions to the people. Like, so they asked my girls questions. They start talking. Do you want to take a picture? Oh, yeah, we'll take a picture. Like, even then, it's like it's at the end, and they're still, like, welcoming us to have this great moment, this great experience from beginning to end. It was really remarkable to me, just how welcoming it was. And I think about that a lot, and I notice things like that because there is this part of God, this part of God's nature where he's very welcoming. I mean, God is very hospitable, and he invites us to be hospitable to each other. He even gives some people a unique gift called the gift of hospitality, where it's just like it's supernaturally natural to them. They can just make people feel at home. They make people feel like, oh man, it is better because you're here. I love that. And that's kind of what that experience felt like for us. And today, I want to look at a passage that might not often feel like, oh man, this is like a welcoming hospitality passage kind of thing. But it really is. It's in Luke chapter 15. So if you've got a Bible, or if you want to grab a phone, or you can just follow along on the screen if you want. But even for those of you at home or vacation spots or college dorms, wherever you're at, like find something or just locking on the screen. Luke 15 is this encounter. Luke is this guy who knew Jesus and so wrote a biographical account of him. Luke's a doctor, and so he's real thoughtful in what he writes. Like, it's got a lot of detail, and it's not as much action-oriented, it is detail-oriented. And he captures some of the words of Jesus. And in Luke 15, Jesus tells 3 stories to make 1 point in 3 different ways. Jesus tells 3 stories to make 1 point in 3 different ways. All of them carry this same theme, and it's absolutely central to the heart. I mean, this is core of Jesus. We're going to encounter stories that really, this is what makes Jesus' heart beat, okay? And so in Luke chapter 15, Pastor Caleb started us off so well last week. Look at the beginning of this. We're going to go back to the very, very beginning just to set the context again. He says this, verse 1. Now the tax collectors and the sinners, just so you know, like tax collectors aren't really viewed any better than sinners were in the first century, okay? We're all gathering around to hear Jesus. Like they've got one thing. They're all rallying for the same purpose. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law were also pushing in and were in the crowd, and they muttered, "This man, Jesus, he welcomes sinners and he eats with them." So you have these two really distinct groups, supposedly. You have these tax collectors who are working for Rome, who is a little bit oppressing Israel, and you have these sinners, these people who are living just lives completely opposition to what God is doing. And then the other hand, you have these Pharisees and these these Pharisees and these religious leaders, and they're all pushing in to hear Jesus. One out of curiosity, and one because they're looking to set Jesus up, right? And so in each of these stories that Jesus tells, there's some points of reference back to each one of these groups. But what I'm fascinated by at the very beginning is this reality that both of these groups are there. That before we know anything that Jesus said, we know there's some groups pushing in to hear. And not even for all of the same motive. And it's interesting to me that Jesus doesn't push any of them away. There's these sinners, who are at least curious about Jesus, but living completely opposite of Jesus. There's these Pharisees, religious leaders, who are trying to plot against Jesus, and Jesus doesn't push any of them away. It's really intriguing to me. We actually start learning something about Jesus right here before we hear the stories that he tells. One thing we learn right off the bat is that Jesus must be really good at welcoming people. He must be really good at welcoming people. Right? I mean, the fact that there are people who are against him but exploring him, and the people who are against him and plotting against him would all feel like they could be in the same space around him, that's incredible to me. That's incredible to me. I mean, we live in a world where it's hard to be in the room with somebody who has one idea that's different than ours, right? And here's Jesus creating this space where it's like, whoa, everybody's here. And it kind of begs the question, when you think about those people who are around Jesus, they have some things in common. And while one is getting labeled sinners and tax collector, and one is getting labeled Pharisees and religious leaders, all of them have some distance between them and Jesus relationally. All of them are not really in full, devoted, surrendered relationship with Jesus. All of them, in some way, have created or are keeping, even in their curiosity, some space between them and Jesus. And yet he welcomes them. It's like, hey, come on, be around. I have some things. I got some teaching. I got some stories to tell. And it just makes me ask this question, for people like you and me, who are you welcoming? In your life, who do you welcome? And just ask the question, who do I welcome? If you're a follower of Jesus, what's at the core of that question is, who do I welcome in my life, into my space? Who do I welcome that doesn't know Jesus? Who do I welcome that is like the people Jesus was welcoming in this teaching, in this moment? Who do I welcome? And you could add to that, and how do I welcome them? Do I welcome them into my home? Do I welcome them into my circles of influence? Do I welcome them into my conversations? Do I welcome them into my lunches? Do I welcome them into my life events? Do I welcome them into the stories that I have to tell? How do I welcome them? Which is not really, how do I be nice to them? how do I be polite? It's really, how do I convey that in this moment things are better because you are here? Things are better because you're at my table. Things are better because we're walking down this hallway at school or work. Things are better because we are sharing this hobby together. Things are better because you're here. Who do you welcome? Jesus would have described these people, even the religious leaders of the day, Jesus would have described them as lost. They are not connected to the God who made them. They might think some of them think they are connected, but they are disconnected from the God who made them. And Jesus says, well, that's lost. This is your point of origin. You're disconnected from the point of origin, from the one who created you. You're lost. And Jesus says later, actually Luke records him saying it later, like, I actually came from heaven to go find and to rescue and save lost people. That's why I'm here. And so it makes sense, right, that Jesus would welcome those kind of people into the stories that he is getting ready to tell. The question isn't who did Jesus welcome, it's obvious. The question is, who do we welcome? The question is, who are you welcoming and how? And the second question is just as important, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but the second question is, what do you want for them? Who do I welcome and what do I want? Who do I welcome and what do I want? Who do I welcome and what do I want? For Jesus, there was no debate about what he wanted for these people. There was no hidden motive. There was no bait and switch. There was no ulterior plan. Jesus wanted lost people to be found. Jesus wanted separated people to be united to him. Jesus wanted people who were not yet with him to understand the fullness of the sacrifice and the victory he would get for them. The question is, what do we want? Like, what is it that we are actually wanting for the people that we are welcoming? Are we willing to welcome the sinner and the tax collector and the religious people who aren't really as religious as they think they might be? Hey, look, here's the beauty of this. If you're not a follower of Jesus because you're exploring or you're wondering or because you don't really want anything to do with Jesus at all in this moment, the good news is Jesus is still like got the welcome mat out. He still has it out. If you're around a lot of Jesus-shaped environments and you have a lot of religious jargon and you have a lot of religious ritual, but you aren't really sure you have an intimate, vibrant relationship with Jesus, the good news is Jesus still has the welcome mat out. He's still like eager, like he's still creating this space and he's telling stories to awaken in us this like, this is me and this is Jesus. So I want to look at just a second story. The story that Pastor Caleb walked us through so well last week is this story about this lost sheep, which the sheep would have been incredibly valuable in the economy of the day. Like every sheep had significant value. And Jesus, in the second story, plays out same principle, but from a little different place. We're going to start in verse 8. He says this. Now, Jesus is talking, right? We know who's listening. And he says, okay, let me tell you a second story. Suppose a woman has 10 silver coins and she loses one, which honestly, the one, it's not worth a ton, days' wages or so. Like it's not, clearly not as valuable as the sheep. Some of the people today would have been able to look at the one coin and say, you lose a penny in the couch, you don't go hunting for it. You lose a $100 bill on the couch, you probably look, right? And if not, we should talk if you got that much money just to throw around. But okay, yeah. Or suppose a woman has 10 silver coins and loses one. Doesn't she, and then listen to all these really active words, doesn't she light a lamp and sweep the house, like get rid of all the clutter and move things, right? And search carefully until she finds it? Like, I love that. Like, she loses one coin, still has 9. A lot of the people listening would have thought, one coin. The tax collectors who are listening, they're patting their pockets with multiple coins in every transaction. One coin is no big deal. Okay? She's like, no, even one coin. Like she lights a lamp, right? And you got to like light a lamp in the day is not like go flip a switch so all the lights in the room come on. It's literally light a candle, put something on it to make it a lamp, and then you've got to like lift the cushion and put it under. And like, oh man, there's a first century Cheeto, whatever that the equivalent of that was. There's my granddaughter's hair tie. Oh, hey, you know what I mean, right? There's all these things, right? And she's relentless. It's under furniture. It's over cabinets everywhere. You like, where could I have lost it? I retrace my steps, like inside the door. Like there's this relentless, I'm going to sweep. Like I'm going to like sweep off this table with this stack of books on it and everything. Like could it possibly be here? I'm going to be diligent. I'm going to be careful. And then look what she says. It says, until. There's no time limit. She doesn't say, and some of you are like big into work productivity and you kind of like understand this, like, I work really hard for 54 minutes and then I take a 6-minute break, which is great, right? But there's none of that with this lady in this story. The one coin is so valuable to her that I will not search until I get tired. I will not search for an hour and call it quits. I won't search for a day. She will search until she finds it. This picture of great value. It's this picture of Jesus saying, man, I will search for you until you have every opportunity possible to see me searching for you. I will do it until. There's no end. There's no quit. It's until I find it. Until, like I'm just going. I love it. That's Jesus saying, look, this coin, like every person, is this valuable. This coin, like every human being I've created, is this valuable. I will light lamps. I will sweep things. I will get debris out of the way. I will remove clutter and barriers, and I will search until every person has every possible opportunity to see my search for them. Look at verse 9 and 10. It says, and when she finds it, I love the faith of it. When she finds it, it's going to happen. When she finds it, she calls all her friends and neighbors, and just understand, right, that's not a mass text. That's like go outside and run to the houses in the village, right? It takes more time. You've just been searching. You've been on your hands and knees. You've been crawling around, and you find something, and it's so exciting that now you go outside and you start running around to tell everybody in the village, right? And you don't just tell everybody in the village. Look what she does. She calls her friends and neighbors together. It's like, look, I just swept my house. It's clean. Let's have a party. Okay, she's like, let's come over here together, and says, rejoice with me. Would you please celebrate with me? I have found my lost coin. And I know the coin doesn't matter much to you. I know a lot of you have a lot of extra coins, and maybe some of you would have given me a coin, but this coin matters to me. So would you celebrate that I found my lost coin? In the same way, I tell you, there's all of this rejoicing and celebration in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner, over one lost person that repents, turns from living their life without Jesus to living their life with Jesus. It's amazing to me. It's amazing to me. See Jesus just saying, oh man, look, that's how much I value people. This is, I want you to see, like, even the sheep, that's one thing, the person that's viewed as really valuable and smart and ahead on things, but also the person who maybe you don't feel valuable or somebody treats you not valuable, or what Jesus, like even you, like I'm searching, man. I got the light on and I am searching. I am welcoming you. I want my life for you. I have things to give you. I have a very different and a better way of life to invite you to. So he's welcoming, and he's got this motive of helping people like live fully with him. And I think it hands us a couple equations. If we look at the story and we look at Jesus' passion, we look at all the woman does, I think there's a couple equations we can see. And the first one is this, like that if we have an active welcome, like we've got people in our life who don't yet know Jesus, if you're a Jesus follower and you're like, oh man, yeah, I'm welcoming all the time, like people who don't yet know Jesus, lost people into my home and into conversations in my workplace or in my school or on my team. If I'm doing that all of the time, I have this really active welcome. And if we have that, but we have what we might call an incomplete want. Well, I welcome them, but I it's not really that important to me. I mean, I'm being nice, and I hope they meet Jesus, but I'm not really willing to go there. I'm not really willing to have a Jesus conversation, and that's kind of private. Or, I hope so, and I hope they see some things in me that maybe one day they'll ask a question, right? If we have an active welcome, but this incomplete want, then you could actually say we have a hypocritical life. We've got a hypocritical life. If we're a follower of Jesus and we have this really active welcome, and I'm just assuming the active welcome, right? Like if you're a Jesus follower and you know no lost people and you don't welcome lost people in your life, then we're missing the totality of Jesus' heart. We're missing the very beginning of why Jesus came in the first place. So I'm assuming today for us, like that if you're here in the room or you're joining online and you're a follower of Jesus, that you have an active welcome. But if we have an active welcome, we have an incomplete want. If it's not our passion, if it's not our conviction that people are made to be reunited with the Jesus who made them, then we are actually living a hypocritical life. Because we are saying that the thing that is most important to us is not really most important for you. It was most important for me. And I say it should matter for you, but I'm not really willing to do anything with that. I'm not really willing to push a boundary. It doesn't matter. You pick for you. Then actually we're living fairly hypocritically. Some of you would be really familiar, probably one of the most prominent or public atheists over the last couple of generations was actually quoted as saying one time after a Jesus follower had tried to share Jesus with them. And some other atheists were condemning the Jesus follower. This very prominent atheist said, wait, no, listen. Don't, no, let him talk. Because here's the deal. If I believed what Jesus followers say they believe, I would spend all of my time trying to share that with other people. If I believed what Jesus followers say they believe, and I really thought it was as important as they say it's important, how hateful would I have to be to not be living a life sharing that? It's like, ooh, lots of us as followers of Jesus just got called out by an atheist. That's awkward. But he's right. Like if we really say Jesus is my life, if we really say my life is made by, built for, is full and whole with Jesus, if we really say my eternity depends on Jesus, but Jesus' life in me now is everything, if we really say that, if we really say we believe it, but then we have this incomplete desire for other people to have it, if we don't really care at the end of the day if other people have it, if we won't really be inconvenienced so that other people might have it, if we won't really set down our preferences so other people might have it, if we won't really risk rejection and face our fears and everything else, then I think he's right. Right? We're kind of living a hypocritical life. But there's an alternative, right? We can have this active welcome, and we can have this eternity motivated love. And if we'll have an active welcome, we're welcoming people who don't yet know Jesus, who are very different than into these conversations and into just the daily rhythms of our life. If we are actually sharing life with them and we are doing it with not a pushy and not an oppressive and not a manipulative and not a coercive, but a contagious, winsome, life-giving, natural life where we most naturally talk about the things that are important to us, like our kids and like our hobbies and like our job and like Jesus, then what we really have is this eternity-motivated love. And if you put this active welcome together with this eternity-motivated love, what we really get is a very Jesus-like life. That's Jesus' life. That's Jesus' life. Now, I know for some of us, let's just pause for a second, because some of us are like, yeah, but if I just talk about Jesus all the time, that starts to feel weird, right? Let's just pull it back one notch. Even Jesus didn't talk about Jesus all the time. Jesus was engaged enough in the culture and people that he understood the value of sheep and shepherding. He understood the value of a lost coin to some people. He understood the cultural trends of the day. He talked about carpentry. He actually did carpentry for a while. He spent time with his family. In fact, 30 of his 33 years were with his family. I mean, right? It's like, what is he doing? He's living the things that are important to him. He's talking about his Father in heaven. He's talking about him and what he's here to do, right? And so we can have this very Jesus-like life. So the question comes back to this, who do I welcome and what do I want? Who do I welcome and what do I want? And is my want for them strong enough? Love motivated enough? That I will light the lamp in my own life and I will sweep the clutter and debris out of my own life that gets in the way of me being and sharing Jesus? Is my love strong enough, Jesus-like enough, that I will light the lamp in conversation with them, that I will help sweep the debris of their life and the deceptions of the world away? And will I do it until? Will I do it until? Will I do it until? Will I do it as long as God gifts me with relationship with these people and this person and that family member? I have this guy in my life. I probably have to call him an acquaintance, not quite yet a friend. I think we're becoming friends though. And just recently, within the last month or so, I happened to find myself in the same environment as him, which I didn't know going in. And in this environment, I was like, oh, I got this huge window into something he really loves. I mean, that he is passionate about. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I really like that too. And the thing that he's doing, and he's passionate about it, I have a million questions about. I mean, I could ask questions for days about it. I'm so interested. I'm so inquisitive about it. I was like, this is great. And while we're in that environment, I get like 2 minutes probably to talk to him, just 2 minutes. But it builds this little bit of a bridge. I'm like, oh, wait. I've got a chance to more than ever before, be very welcoming to him through conversation, just through presence, time together. Through the questions I can ask, through the way that I can add value and convey value to his life by being interested about what he's interested about. And just asking all sorts of questions, right? Part of how we love people is be interested in what they're interested in, right? Part of Jesus' love for you, but in fact, one of the most mind-boggling parts about Jesus' love for me is that he's actually interested in me, right? It's crazy to me. And so that's part of how we convey love, right? And then the other day, I saw him. We were actually both out someplace again. Didn't really envision this happening, but we were both out, and I saw him walking someplace, and I was driving through the same place, and I just stopped. And put the window down. There's still this part of me, I'm really old. I want to say rolled the window down. I didn't. I pushed a button, and the window went down, right? Because he was kind of coming on the passenger side of my car, and we just sat there. And we probably talked for, 8 to 10 minutes. And all I did was ask questions about this thing that I now know he loves. And I kind of like it too, and he doesn't really understand how much I like it too yet, and that's fine, right? We just ask questions. It's the longest conversation we've ever had. It's the most eye contact he's ever been willing to give me. And he just shared, and he got going on this thing, right? And listen, you're like, John, aren't you kind of manipulating? No. I genuinely love the thing he loves. I genuinely love him because he is a human that God made for an original design to be with the God who made him, right? I want to convey the same value. I think God is trying to ask him about the thing he loves too because God put the love in him. So I'm just partnering with what God is doing through his Holy Spirit in that moment. And now the needle's moving a little. We're pushing towards the top of the acquaintance spectrum, so maybe one day we can be friends. Right? And sometimes, listen, welcoming and have in an eternity motivated love looks just like that. That's part of the journey. That's part of the process. That's a step on the way. It's a step on the way. It's part of searching and clearing clutter and moving relational debris and relational obstacles out of the way and knocking them over and taking a risk with certain conversations and taking a risk by saying, does this person even want to talk to me for these 8 to 10 minutes, right? There's risk in all of it, right? But that's knocking down these barriers. It's turning on the light so we can see a little better in it. And that's what I love about Jesus is he's relentless in that with us, and so we get this opportunity to be relentless in it with others. And much like a Broadway musical, Back to the Future, will welcome us in the most full and creative ways possible. We, like Jesus, can be people who would welcome people who are the ones Jesus is after, to welcome people that Jesus said, man, they're lost, and I want them to be found so bad. And we can want them to fully meet Jesus, to encounter the fullness of his life and the completeness of his salvation in a very different but better way of living. Now here's the thing. In a moment like today, in a day like today, I can't answer all of the practical implications of that for you. You have to sort some of that out. You have to let Jesus awaken some things in you and say yes to those. And so I want to give you a few ways that you can say, oh, this is how I can gauge my want, because the want's probably the most important thing. Do I really want? Not do I have to, not can I get it just right. Do I really want this person to really know Jesus? Not join a church, not check a box, not say a magic prayer, but to really know the living Jesus. Do I really want that for them? So let me give you a few ways, just a few things. They just be little checks. Okay, the first one is just this question that we started with. Who do I welcome? Who do I welcome? Who am I welcoming, right now? And you can add to that how. What am I doing tangibly to welcome people into my life? Not just into my life, but into my spaces, into my conversations, into my hobbies, into my things I enjoy, into my free time. How am I doing it walking them into my not free time? When it's not convenient for me to be available, but I will be. Because that's when I bumped into this person that's still just an acquaintance that I one day hope is a friend. Okay, how do we, who am I walking? How am I searching to love? How am I searching to love? How am I looking to serve them? How am I looking to add value? How am I letting the Holy Spirit shape my prayers for the people in my life that are lost? Am I praying the same prayer that I prayed for lost people for 20 years? It may still be right, but what if Jesus has something new for you to pray? What if the Spirit is trying to invite you to pray something that's unique to a certain person in a certain moment, in a certain period of time? Am I searching to love through my prayers? Am I searching to love through my availability? Am I searching to love through my conversation? Am I searching to love for some of people in our life? Am I searching to love them by figuring out what I can receive? They love to serve. Will I accept their serving? Will I accept their help? How am I searching to love? And then this last one's a measure of our anticipation. But how will I celebrate? How will I celebrate? I just have this sense that this lady in this story, right? If you put yourself in this lady's shoes, she's determined. I'm going to search until I find the coin, right? And can you kind of imagine her, again, underneath the cushion and pulling out the Cheerios and all these kind of things, right? Can you kind of imagine that while she's doing it, she's thinking, man, I can't wait to go tell Larry. I can't wait to go have Sam over. I can't wait to go have Sue over. When I find this coin, we're going to celebrate. Man, she's anticipating there is a moment where this coin is going to emerge somewhere in her house. There is a moment, friends. Listen to me. There is a moment, because it is the heart of Jesus. There is a moment where some of the people in your life who are currently lost are going to be found. So if heaven goes ballistic, maybe we could plan on doing that. Maybe we could plan on being people who celebrate. Maybe we could plan on being people who just shove aside a little bit of our West Michigan reservedness for the sake of celebration for something that matters for eternity. Maybe, right? Maybe. Are they all going to? I hope for your sake and their sake, yes. Is Jesus going to violate the gift of the free will he gave? No. Are some going to reject him? Yup. That's the tragedy of the thing. That's the tragedy. That's the heartache we risk in this whole journey. But who do you welcome? Who do you welcome? Right? How you wanting? Just what are you wanting for them? Really at the end of that, what are you? How are you searching for love? How are you searching to love them? And how will you celebrate? How will you celebrate their decision of saying, yeah. That's what I want. Here's this thing. We have this thing that we say around Journey a lot. It's kind of what drives us. If you put it in 5 words, it's like more life for more people. We try and say it a lot. We talk about it a lot. More life for more people, right? That's really what we're about. That little 5 words comes from a longer phrase, and this phrase has been a part of Journey from the very beginning in some way, shape, or form. And it simply is that we exist, Journey Church, the people of Journey, like we, not the organization, the people. We exist to help as many people as possible live in a life-giving relationship with Jesus. That's why we exist. We exist to go searching for these people. We exist to help found people experience more and more Jesus all the time. We exist to help as many people as possible live in a life-giving relationship with Jesus. That's why we exist. But here's the thing. I think we read stories like the ones in Luke 15, lost sheep, lost coin, okay? I think we read stories like that on occasion. And it gets easy to say, well, that was Jesus, or that was the disciples. Like we kind of just put that out there. And we hear statements like this one, that we exist to help as many people as possible, right? We hear that. And it gets really easy to think, well, that's that. That's the organization of the church. That's like the structure of the church. That's the thing. Or that's the person in the other row because they're more spiritual than me, or that's the person who leads that thing over there because they're like more like oddly holy or something, right? And yet none of that's true. None of that's true. Is it we together? Of course it is. 100% it is we together. But I want to put in front of you today just a slightly different version. Because I think sometimes while the we is true, it deceives us just a little. Just a little. So how about if we look at it this way? I exist. I exist. I exist to help as many people as possible live in a life-giving relationship with Jesus. I exist. And if you said it about you, I exist. You exist. You exist. You exist. I exist. You exist for this. You'd be like, John, don't tell me what I exist for. Well, I'm not. I'm just like paraphrasing Jesus for you. That's all. This is what Jesus said. Like, I came to seek and save the lost. I came so that you could have full life and you could share it with other people. You know, like I came and won this thing so you could go make disciples. Like, you know, quit calling yourself a disciple if you don't want to make a disciple. I mean, right? This is Jesus, right? It's not like, this isn't my like doctoral prescription for you. I'm just paraphrasing Jesus for you. I exist. You exist. Do we exist? Of course. Do we give towards? Of course. Do we design events for? Of course. Of course. But it's not this thing. It's you. And it's me. Is it Jesus' disciples? It is. Is it them as the collective? It is. Is it them as individuals? It is. If you watch the rest of their story unfold in the book of Acts, it's them individually too. I exist. I exist. So here's what I want to invite you to do. I want to invite you just to read this with me. Let's just read the whole phrase, okay? First word included. No passing on the first word because you're unsure, okay? Let's just read this thing together. Here's all it says this. I exist to help as many people as possible live in a life-giving relationship with Jesus. That's it. That's Jesus' call to us. She's called us. And it was so important to him that in Luke 15, he told 3 stories from different angles trying to convey the story. Next week, we're going to look at the last one, and I think you'll see things inside the story and experience things you've never seen before, even if you've read it 1,000 times. It's the most common story of them all. But come next week, and we'll go one more time around this heart and passion of Jesus and where we really find ourselves in some of that. Let me pray for you for just a minute. Jesus, thank you for being so determined to help us see your heart for us, like the passion with which you come after us, that you in one little setting with some people, you would use 3 stories to try and paint analogies so that nobody would miss the fullness of your love for them. So that even the people listening to you who weren't for you in the moment, you were giving them every possible chance. Thanks for that kind of kindness. Thanks for kind of grace, that kind of resilience. And Jesus, for those of us who are followers of you, thank you that you would invite us into something that matters so much to you. You could have just kept it all to yourself and said, never mind, I'll take care of all of it. I said, no, but it was so important, and you knew our lives were made with value and significance, so you've invited us into this thing with you. Even that is so kind and gracious of you. So even this week, help us hear your leading and your prompting, I pray. In Jesus' name, amen.